Welcome to this series of videos all about breathwork. Now in this first video, we're just going to talk a little bit about breathwork, like 101 foundational things, because it is such a big topic. And as we can see, the wind decided to respond, which is part of the reason why I'm out here in nature. You know, as often as possible, if you can get outside and realize that you are not separate than nature. You don't need to go to the ocean. You don't need to go to the mountains. Just being outdoors is enough. I often hear so many different things from different people. I live in a city and all this type of stuff, but we build buildings in nature. The only time that we're not in nature is literally when we're indoors. That said, just getting outside is a great way to practice breath work and really come back to your senses and come back to the totality of this existence, this soul, you as a soul, embodied in human form. They say in some cultures that God breathed life into man. So in a lot of ways, you can see how the breath is so intertwined with the soul. So with that, I would like to start here. It was about 4 years ago in March of 2019 when I was going through a numbing depression. I'm talking about sleepless nights. I'm talking about having energy during the day, but it was more of an alertness. It wasn't energy like, oh, let's go out and do a workout. It was just this constant alertness. And if you've ever experienced a numbing depression, you know what I'm talking about. And that's when breathwork found me. That is the first time that I did a breathwork journey, meaning 60 and 90 minutes of just me and my breath and the facilitator. And I literally felt reborn from this experience. It was so profound that it changed my entire perspective of what this human experience is. Then yes, I went deeper with things like ayahuasca and other earth and plant medicines that really helped to make sense and integrate this newfound spirituality into daily life. But what was the first catalyst? It was that connection to my breath. I'd like to begin by talking about these words, breathwork. You know, it's either breath work, 2 words, or breathwork is 1 word. It doesn't really matter. Either way, it's not a huge difference. You will see it both ways. I typically have breathwork as 1 word, but when we hear breathwork, it means so many different things to so many different people, because for many of us, when we think breathwork, we're just thinking of what we might have experienced in a yoga class, whether it be alternate nostril breathing, it be box breathing where you inhale, you hold at the top, then you exhale and you hold at the bottom, or just simply intentional breaths. Now, the thing is, because breathwork is becoming this very popular topic in healing modality circles right now, it's important to be able to distinguish what type of breathwork we're talking about. When I speak about breathwork, if I say breathwork journey, I'm talking about going deep anywhere that's 30 to 60 to 90 minutes plus of just you and your breath. The intention there is to really release stored trauma in the body, because you can think of it this way. Most of us are familiar with how a lion will chase a gazelle, right? And if that gazelle gets away and it's lucky enough to live, what does it do? It kind of like convulses and it shakes, right? And what is the gazelle doing? It's releasing that trauma in the body in the moment, as opposed to holding on to that trauma. And as adults, as human beings, most of us, especially in Western culture, what do? We hold on to the trauma. And these emotions that we feel, remember that emotions means energy in motion. If we don't let that energy go through and move through us, then it gets stored in the body. This is why so many children will have temper tantrums. They are expressing themselves. But as humans, we have been conditioned to not express ourselves. So what do in traumatic situations? We hold that into the body, and perhaps we even dissociate. In stressful situations, we do the same thing. We hold it into the body. So lighter breathwork exercises, which is mostly what I'm going to be talking about, is all about releasing stress, anxiety, these sorts of emotions that get trapped and stored in the body, whereas breathwork journeys are more about releasing that stored trauma in the body. So now that we have that as a good foundation, the next thing that I want to talk about is diaphragmatic breathing. And what that means is basically letting your belly expand when you inhale and bringing the belly to the spine. Now let's do this together. If you are somewhere that you can breathe with me and you're safe to do so, just sit down and just go ahead and find an exhale through the mouth. Now inhale and imagine that you're blowing up a balloon. Go ahead and inhale and let the belly expand. And then exhale through the mouth, let the shoulders drop, bring the belly to the spine. Another like that, inhaling through the nose, letting the belly expand, lifting up. And through the mouth, exhale, let the shoulders drop, bring the belly to the spine. And another like that. This, my friend, is in fact the best, the most efficient way to breathe. And it's almost counterintuitive because if you think about it, when you're inhaling, you're pushing out with your belly. This took me a long time to master. You know, even when I was getting into fitness, when I was doing triathlons maybe 10 plus years ago or so, my dad was actually the one that was teaching me how to breathe correctly. And I didn't know I was breathing wrong. And a lot of us are breathing wrong, but it kind of makes sense if you think about it. We inhale. So as we inhale, we're bringing the belly to the spine. And when we're pushing air out, we're expanding the belly. But that is actually incorrect. So I want you, or this is actually an invitation for you to look at how you breathe. Can you notice if you naturally inhale, letting the belly expand, or if when you inhale, you bring the belly to the spine? And if you are inhaling and bring the belly to the spine, can you start to bring some intentionality throughout your day on inhaling and letting the belly expand as if you're blowing up a balloon? Because visualize an empty balloon, then hooking up to one of those helium things, or, you know, inhaling through your mouth, you're blowing air into the balloon and the balloon expands. And that's what we want to do when we are inhaling. Let that belly expand into its fullest expression. Big inhales. See how the chest comes up? The diaphragm is actually moving outward. And then as we exhale, we let the shoulders drop and we bring the belly to the spine. That is diaphragmatic breathing. The next thing that I want to talk about is the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. Now, the sympathetic nervous system represents fight, fright, or flight. So basically, that is going to give you more of an activation, if you will. When we do these breathwork journeys, oftentimes we are really heavily focused on activating the sympathetic nervous system to put our bodies in a stress response, to mimic that stress response and to get the ego out of the way so that the body can just go ahead and do its thing and release that stored trauma. Whereas the parasympathetic nervous system is about rest and digest. So if you're someone who is very wired up and you have a lot of energy a lot of times and it's hard for you to kind of like cool down, you're definitely going to want to know about the parasympathetic nervous system, which is rest and digest. Now I'm actually more mellow and it takes me a lot to build up energy. So working on a 5-minute practice every day of doing sympathetic breathing helps to give me natural energy. So this is why it's so important to realize where you're at in the scale, and also knowing that yes, you can have a tendency to more often be more energetic or more lethargic like myself, but also coming back to moment awareness, noticing like, what do I need now? So now that we know about the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, how do we activate these? Well, when you inhale through the mouth and you exhale through the mouth, you're generally speaking going to be activating the sympathetic nervous system. So that would look like this. And if you've ever practiced somatic breath work or Wim Hof breath work or even holotropic breath work, a lot of these breath works are heavily focused on the mouth breathing. And like I said, that is because it activates the sympathetic nervous system. Now, if you've done somatic breath work with me or another practitioner, if you're familiar with it at all, how we lead somatic breath work is the first half is about clearing and letting go, activating the sympathetic nervous system to mimic that stress response, to release that trauma. In the second half of the journey, that is when we focus on the parasympathetic to pretty much integrate, to get your body into a more rest and digest so you're not leaving just buzzed the whole time. So with parasympathetic nervous system, you can think about it as inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the nose or mouth. In truth, it's not as important if you exhale through the nose or mouth to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. What's most important is that you're focusing on elongated exhale and inhaling through the nose. To recap, sympathetic nervous system. If you want more energy, if you want to do some sort of journey to release more stored trauma in the body, we're activating the sympathetic nervous system, and we can do that by elongating the inhale and having the inhale be through the mouth. Now, for the parasympathetic nervous system, maybe it's before you go to sleep, maybe you're going into a big meeting or some sort of stressful situation and you just want to focus on calming yourself down a bit. That's when we would want to focus on the parasympathetic nervous system. And that is going to be done by inhaling through the nose and elongating, meaning letting your exhales be longer and slower. So if you've ever done box breathing, which is inhaling, holding at the top, exhaling, holding at the bottom, and repeating, you're creating a box, essentially. If you've ever done box breathing, it's a great exercise to focus on relieving tension, anxiety, stress, all these sorts of things. But a bonus is to let your exhale be longer. So think about it this way. We'll inhale for, let's say, 3 seconds. Inhale for 3. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. And hold for 2. Inhale for 3. Hold for 2. And exhale through the mouth for 6. And that is a great exercise to activate the parasympathetic nervous system to release tension, anxiety, stress, all of these sorts of things. Now, before we go, I have one more tip for you, and this is called the Cyclic Sigh. So the Cyclic Sigh is 2 inhales through the nose and an exhale through the mouth, and I'll do it first. So we'll inhale through the nose, and we'll sip in a bit more, and exhale through the mouth. Again. So what this does is it releases stress and anxiety. Stanford did a study on this, and they found that practicing cyclic sighing for 5 minutes a day is an incredible way to remove and release more stress and anxiety. So if you find that you have a lot of stress in your life, I would recommend trying this out. And it is activating the parasympathetic nervous system. So this is another thing you could do before you go to bed. Just make sure that when you inhale all the way up, pause, sip in as much air as you can, and then exhale. Let it be a slow and nourishing exhale, and let it all out. Now we have so much more to talk about breathwork. This is just the first video. So if you're not already subscribed to Spirituality Simplified, that is the name of this YouTube channel. Please make sure to subscribe and check out the rest of this playlist that will be filled with different breathwork exercises. I am telling you, if you utilize your breath on a daily basis, that is your ticket to integrating spirituality into everyday life and bringing moment to moment awareness.